Welcome back, fans and friends. I'm PDW2KX, and this is PC with PD. PC with PD is brought to you by MMAfigs.com, your UFC action figure and news source. As always, we'll be looking at some of the big news stories going around the world of mixed martial arts. I'll start out first with some thoughts on UFC 107. Now, I've done full event reviews before, and believe me, I know how massive some of my reviews are. Usually, I go match by match and give some play by play mixed in with my overall thoughts and feelings, and that can tend to make for some really long reads. So here's what we'll do. Whenever there's a big fight card or simply a fight card I feel like commenting on, I'll take some time in the latest edition of PC with PD to talk about it. I may not cover every match, but I'll also be posting full results on MMAfigs.com. So let's start with UFC 107. I really enjoyed the Clay Guida versus Kenny Florian match, even though I'm always gutted whenever Clay Guida loses. Clay always puts on such great performances and displays so much heart that it's hard to ever root against this guy. Unfortunately, I think this last fight proves once and for all that Clay Guida is a gatekeeper to the lightweight division. As a somewhat serious Clay fan, it hurts me to admit that. Clay has put on some real show stealers in his UFC career, but more often than not he always seems to stumble against world-class opponents. The strange thing about that is that the same thing can be said about Kenny Florian, to an extent. Florian always seems to go on these absolute tears where he runs through a bunch of guys and looks like one of the top fighters in the world, to the point where absolutely no one can contest that he deserves a title shot. Then he gets one, and he gets completely tooled. Florian opened up one of the craziest cuts I've ever seen on Sean Sherk, and he still couldn't put him away. It may not have been the biggest cut I've ever seen in MMA, but it was undoubtedly one of the most persistent. From the moment Florian first landed the elbow that busted Sherk open, that cut just refused to stop bleeding. It was a real sight to behold Sherk with a championship belt around his waist, while looking like someone had just repeatedly stabbed him in the face. Florian's list of victories on his way to a second title shot was even more impressive than his first, but once again he got completely outclassed. For all his talk about killing the master, it was BJ Penn that ended up ending things with the rear naked choke after 4 rounds of domination. Where this fight with Guida leaves Florian is anyone's guess. He's still a major threat in the lightweight division, and I think he'll eventually earn a third crack at the lightweight championship. However, I also think he'll lose that third championship match if it's against anyone on the level of Sean Sherk or BJ Penn. Plus, as he proved against Diego Sanchez, right now BJ Penn is in another universe when compared to everyone else in the lightweight division. Moving on to Frank Mir versus Cheick Kongo, I have to say that I was completely taken by surprise during that fight. I knew, just like I'm sure everyone knew, that this fight was done once Mir got Kongo on the floor. But I never would have thought that Mir would get Kongo on the floor by nearly knocking him out. Frank Mir looked in phenomenal shape for this bout, and he made it look easy when he completely dismantled Kongo. I consider myself a Cheick Kongo fan, and while I make no excuses for his ground game, I will say that I think he is one of the best pure strikers in the UFC. Seeing him nearly get his lights turned off by Frank Mir of all people was a real shocker. While I don't think Kongo will be cut from the UFC for this loss, since his style is usually so entertaining, I do think that this fight puts Kongo way at the bottom of the UFC heavyweight division. And while I dislike Mir for his cockiness, I have to admit that he's rarely looked as good in the octagon as he did in this fight. And finally, we come to the main event of UFC 107, BJ Penn versus Diego Sanchez. As a massive BJ Penn fan, I love this fight. Penn displayed a level of dominance that shocked even me. While I personally dislike Diego Sanchez, I can admit that he is a very dangerous striker when all cylinders are firing. But Penn had an answer and a counter for absolutely everything Diego threw at him. I respect Diego a lot for lasting to the fifth round, but the end to that fight was assured long before Penn caught Diego off guard with a kick and opened up one of the nastiest gashes I've ever seen in an MMA fight. I honestly believe that BJ Penn is the best lightweight on the planet, and I think he'll be regarded as the best lightweight ever to compete in mixed martial arts before too long. Just like fellow champions George St. Pierre and Anderson Silva, Penn has made his championship defenses look so easy that one has to wonder who's left for him. A possible return to the welterweight division has come up, as has possible contenders like Frankie Edgar and Gray Maynard. Ultimately, we'll have to wait and see, but one thing is for sure. We better get used to that lightweight championship around BJ Penn's waist, because I'm pretty sure it's not going anywhere. Moving onward to the latest news and headlines from around the world of mixed martial arts, Strikeforce recently made some waves when they announced that they had signed former WWE star and current TNA star Bobby Lashley to a multi-year contract. While not as quick of a learner as Brock Lesnar, Lashley possesses all of the tools that have made Lesnar such a dominating force, mainly a massive set of muscles and an amateur wrestling pedigree. Lashley's current record stands at 4-0, and aside from an embarrassing 3-round decision win over Jason Guida, Lashley has looked supremely dominant in his MMA fights. The aforementioned Guida fight cast some serious doubt on Lashley's career, as he looked about as green as a forest. However, Lashley rebounded as much as you can rebound from a win, with two big wins over Mike Cook and most recently Bob Sapp. Lashley is expected to debut for the promotion at a Miami event in January 2010. I'm very interested in seeing who Lashley's first opponent will be, and I'm even more interested in seeing how Lashley makes the best of this opportunity. Without a doubt, Strikeforce is the number 2 promotion in the world right now, so Bobby Lashley has to prove he belongs. If he does continue to learn and continue to dominate opponents, I can see Lashley becoming one of Strikeforce's biggest stars. But the Guida fight proved that Lashley won't become an icon overnight. This is why a multi-year deal makes so much sense. Lashley needs to be built up and marketed, but he also needs time to learn and develop as an MMA fighter. Picking Lashley's first opponent may be difficult for Strikeforce. A dominating win over a can doesn't do much. An embarrassing loss to an experienced heavyweight doesn't do much either. Lashley needs someone who can really test his skills, who can go toe-to-toe with a massive heavyweight and make it a fight. That way, win or lose, Lashley can prove that he belongs in Strikeforce. Lashley's hype may have died down a bit since he first debuted, but anyone who's seen him fight knows how much potential he has. We won't have to wait long to see Lashley in Strikeforce, and I can't wait to see how he does in the promotion.